Hey everyone, Jarrett from Chronosapien here, and I'm here to break down my concepting phase for my 3D asset pipeline. So when it comes to creating concepts, I find it very important to find a reasonable amount of references. I also find it very important to actually have your references in the project that you're working on, because as opposed to looking over to a side monitor and taking a glance every now and then taking your eyes off what you're working, it's just right there, so it's easier to see it in your peripheral vision as you're trying to create something. Another thing I like to do is have just a simple 3-color palette, because I start with silhouettes, so I use the black for that, then I have the medium gray for the midtone, and that'll get like the majority of the details, and then I also have a white for a highlight, so that'll help give a little bit of depth if you need it. Once again, we want to keep these concepts pretty simple, but they also have a good amount of contrast, so having a 3-color palette keeps it simple and makes it easy to rocket out a bunch of ideas. Another thing that I like to do is, as opposed to having a plain white or black background, I do like to do a gradient, and I go from a dark gray to a light gray, and once again that just kind of helps with the 3-color palette and make those colors pop out. If it was on a white background, the white wouldn't stand out if it was too close to the edge, or it would look like an area was erased away. If I had a black background, the black wouldn't stand out, and if I had the medium gray, the midtones would kind of disappear and look like they're punched out. So having the gradient kind of gives like a little bit of variance in the value to give the contrast for that 3-color palette as we try to keep things simple. When I have my project set up with my references, I have my color palette ready, I like to set a timer for 25 minutes, and then I'll just go from there. And once again, I try to keep my concepts very simple. They're very rough around the edges, and that's fine because I want to get as many ideas as I can, and then I refine them from there. It's almost like sculpting. You kind of start with the blob, and then you use the eraser, and then kind of erase away. So as we see here, just kind of blocking in the concepts, it's a little rough, and then I clean it up to kind of shape it, add a little bit of that mid-tone to give it some dimension. In this one, I'm starting in a perspective view, or almost like a side view, and it always depends. Sometimes you want to start something from the front if that's like the biggest area that you're going to have the most details or have a better idea of the shape. Sometimes you want to do it from the side, but I decided to start with the perspective, but you'll see later on I moved to a top view, which I felt worked out a little bit better. Another thing I like to do is, if the view I'm going to be doing is symmetrical, is I'll create one side first, and then I'll actually go ahead and duplicate that over, and then I'll go ahead and mirror it. So that way, you make sure that there's lots of symmetry there. It makes it, you're only doing half the work rather than double the work. And some areas I'll leave like a little bit rough. It's usually just for the main shapes, and as I go along, I'll keep like deleting half of it and then mirroring it. Once again, as you see, I'm just keeping it pretty simple right now, focusing on tiny details, and you're getting a lot with just that 3-color palette. Not all the ideas work out, but that's why we're here, to try to get as many as we can as possible, because we want to see what works. So overall, this concept right here might not be our favorite, but there might be a few things that we like from it that we can carry over to another one. Once the 25 minutes are up, I'll go ahead and review them, see what I like, see what I might want to try again when working on another concept. And then after that, I'll put in like another 25 minutes, work on a few more. And usually, between the 25-minute sprints and then the 5 to 10 minutes break to review it, you're spending like an hour, and you can get, roughly, 8 to 10 concepts, if not a little bit more, depending on what you're working on. And as we see here, we got a bunch of different ideas. Some are similar, some are a little bit different. And then from here, what I do is I, find what I like about each one, and then I'll carry that over. Sometimes I'll work off one idea that worked out really well, and I'll just duplicate that a few times, and then just kind of rework it and add a few more details, take away some things, and that's pretty much it from there. Once I have a bunch of concepts, the next thing I'll do is I'll move on to creating a model sheet, so I have all the views for when I'm modeling to kind of help me hone in the idea and make sure that it comes out well, as opposed to just jumping in and then finding out certain views don't work based on the perspective that I made. So I'll cover that in the next video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you